Hey, welcome to Game Brigade. I am Brian Greer, and today on the show, we are going to be talking about the games that I would purchase first if I had to go back and start my collection over. I thought this would be a fun list to go back through and look at the games that I find more value in, that I would be 100% happy with having in my collection, and then talk about maybe also what I originally started my collection with. If you're interested, we'll talk about that. So if you guys are new to the show, we do these conversations every once in a while. If that sounds interesting to you, please consider clicking the subscribe button and also leaving a comment down below. So I've got myself some notes here kind of talking about the games. I kind of wrote down the games I started with first, and then we'll kind of follow up with the games that I would recommend opening up with. Now, to note, some early disclaimers. This list that I've kind of cultivated here and curated are games that I believe should be readily available in retail. Okay, some of the versions that I have here are more exclusive, but the game itself should be available in retail. And when I say retail, I'm talking about that I have seen this game personally in my local game stores, and I have a few locally that I check out, and I've at least seen these games in those stores. So that means they should either be available through online game stores or your own local game store, because I wanted to make it, if you are new to the hobby, easily available to kind of get, like, if you were like, oh, those are good games, maybe I should pick them up. That's kind of the idea of what this list is going to be. So, and also, I only picked games that I actually own in my collection. There are games that I think would be a great starting point for a collection, but because I don't own them, I didn't feel like that would be warranted for my video, at least. So let's go ahead and start there. So let's go ahead and start with what I started with, and also know that I've been playing board games for a while, but I didn't start collecting in terms of like what I consider my collection and my hobby until about 2017. So you're going to see a lot of my stuff is relatively newer in terms of purchasing. But the first game I started with my collection with was the original Descent. So first edition Descent, I have everything for that. And then we went Descent second edition, Twilight Imperium 4, Scythe, Gloomhaven, Arkham Horror, Imperial Assault, Terraforming Mars, Champions of Midgard, Tokaido, Ticket to Ride, and Pandemic. Those were the original games that I bought within the first year or so of, except for Descent. Descent we owned for a very long time. But when I started building my collection, I think Twilight Imperium 4, as soon as that released, that's kind of what got my bug of starting collecting was. So with this list, we have 10 games that we're going to talk about. I do have 2 bonus titles that we're also going to talk about. In fact, I really messed up because I put one of them at the bottom of a pile. Ugh. Okay. Let's make some room here so you guys don't get crowded. Okay. So let's talk about the bonus games. Number 1 on the bonus list. This is super heavy, so I didn't want to. Gloomhaven. Let's kind of make it look. So Gloomhaven, this is a game that I would recommend starting with, but I'm putting it on the bonus list because it's not part of my list. And the reason it's not part of my list is Gloomhaven is fairly heavy. It's got a pretty thick rule book. While I don't think the overall play mechanics of the heroes is too difficult, the most complicated aspect of Gloomhaven is understanding the enemy AI and how they interact based on the certain situations you're in. I thought I knew the AI. We played about 10 to 15 games. Then there was a quiz online that you can take that gave you random scenarios and said, okay, what will this enemy do? I got like 60% on that one. So I was like, wow, I thought I knew Gloomhaven. Turns out there's so much nuance to that game. I do think it's a good game for a collection because there's a lot of variability and replayability available in Gloomhaven. I just think it might be a little too big for someone who's starting out. So the other one, and this one's super niche that I want to talk about. Let's move. Don't look at that. Don't spoiler. The next one I want to talk about is Outer Rim. This game I actually really enjoyed, but I'm not putting it on the list because I think it's so nichey that it doesn't make sense for like being a starter for a collection. But I actually really did enjoy my time with Outer Rim. I think we played about 10 games in it, and then at that point it started losing its longevity. And that's the other reason I talked about that in my review for Outer Rim, is that it was really a game that wanted expansions. And I don't know if Fantasy Flight's gonna be coming out with an expansion, because their Star Wars brand, their IP, has been kind of shifting in terms of the way they're treating their IP and how they're moving their assets around. So I don't even know if Outer Rim is going to get that treatment. So those are the two bonus games. So we can kind of talk about, and also the way I kind of broke this list out was I wanted to try to do it within categories. So I've talked about a lot on the channel that I like to try to have my games, you know, I want a game that fits any type of theme or mechanic so that I have different types of experiences with those. I didn't hit every single mechanic obviously in this one, and there are more that I could have included. I just hit the ones that I felt like were the most important for me. So in terms of entry level games, let's do gateway games, entry level games. The first one I want to talk about is Ticket to Ride. Ticket to Ride, and this is specifically Europe, that's the one we got with, but there are so many different variations to Ticket to Ride that I think that anyone would do. Really just pick the one that most interests you. We picked Europe because we wanted to have the least pre-knowledge of where some of the cities were located. Obviously, if you did the US, we kind of have a rough idea of where the cities are in the US, but in Europe, I don't live in Europe, so I don't know where everything is. But the idea of making the longest train route is fairly easy for most people to understand. And when you're looking at a gateway game, you want a game that's non-intimidating but engaging. And Ticket to Ride was kind of that one for us. Really easy game to get people that don't play board games into the hobby. Now, if you're looking for a gateway game that to me is a little bit more play, I have Parks. And Parks is an incredible game, I feel like, especially at 2 players, for that gateway experience. I enjoy the mechanics, I enjoy the art, the aesthetic is all really good. Now, I do have a caveat on that one, because I do recommend the Nightfall expansion. The Parks, I think I gave Parks a 7.1, which is a good game on my rating scale. The only thing I didn't care for it was it definitely gets a little jam-packed at 3+ players. Really solid 2-player, kind of a nice little chess game. But when you get to 3+, it really kind of gets a little crowded. I felt like the Nightfall expansion helped with that by allowing more options in terms of the camping and staying over. So while almost every game on this list has a form of an expansion, this is the only one that I am mentioning. So we've got Parks and the Nightfall expansion. So those are the 2 games that I have for my gateway title games. We have another one that I could label as a gateway game. I put this, what did I write this one down on my notes for? What did I call this one? I called this one a critical thinking game. So that basically means a game that instead of just playing mechanics, instead of like playing a game where you're doing something on a board, it's asking you more to think. And there's a lot of games that I like in that realm. Sherlock Holmes is another one that I like, but one that is easier to enter, still has that same engaging feel, but has a fun little storyline, I would say is Chronicles of Crime. Now, this one specifically is the Millennium series. This is the newest version. The original Chronicles of Crime you can find for relatively inexpensive. Still good. It's set in London during modern times, while the Millennium series is 3 separate games that deals in different time periods, and you can see them. I guess you can't see them here. We have the 1400s. Unfortunately, it's one time I have it upside down. 1400s, 1900s, and 2400s. But the Chronicles of Crime is an app-based game where players are going to be trying to be solving different types of crimes and situations, using their wits, trying to talk to different types of people, trying to figure out the solution, and then when you feel like you have it, you will try to solve the case. I've really enjoyed my times with Chronicles of Crime, and it's been a hit for us so far. So those are, I would say, the lightest fare of games. So the next one, and they actually have a double feature here. The next game is the, I would say the head-to-head 1v1 skirmish game, or dudes on a map like game. And these are the ones that I had the most fun with. And the reason this is a double feature is because it's really based on your IP tastes. So the first one that we're going to feature is War of the Ring. Now this is the first edition, but you could find the second edition for roughly around $50 to $70, depending on the price. And the second edition is roughly the same as the first edition. They just changed some of the cards and the text and a little bit of the starting locations. But for a dudes on a map game that is incredibly thematic, this was a home run for me. I definitely really have found that playing as either the humans or the Alliance or Sauron, the Shadow, has been an incredibly fun, rewarding experience. They do say it's for 2 to 4 players. Really, I find this to be a 2-player game. So when I'm looking for that head-to-head skirmish game, this is the first one I personally am drawing to. Now, do you guys have an idea what my double feature would be? And that one, oh, this one's super dusty because I haven't played in a while. Rebellion. Rebellion is the other version of this in terms of that head-to-head game, but this one has a little bit different type of gameplay where the Empire is hunting for the rebels' hidden base. So when you set up the board, the Empire is going to feel incredibly overwhelming, which is how they should feel, as the rebels are trying to get different types of planets to be in favor of the rebellion. They're trying to do covert operations and shut down the Imperial factories, while the Imperial player is sending out probe droids, trying to figure out where the rebels are hiding. This game, as is the War of the Ring, are 2 games that are incredibly thematic, and if you are a fan of either franchise, will give you a sense of actually being a part of the world. They both have expansions. I don't think you need them for either, although I do enjoy the expansion for Rebellion because it brings in the Rogue One characters and stories. So if you're looking for more of that movie experience, I definitely think Rebellion is it. This one, I would say, gets less play for me and my group now than War of the Ring. But when I first got Rebellion, it's an incredible experience. And I would say if I didn't have War of the Ring, I would probably play Rebellion more. So those are the skirmish, dudes on a map type game. So let's go to the next one. I'm gonna run out of room here with the way I'm kind of setting my games. So I talked about Gloomhaven being the dungeon crawl game in my bonus section, but I put Gloomhaven Jaws of the Lion here, and this specific copy will actually be a giveaway for the channel once we hit 5,000 subscribers. So that's kind of an Easter egg for you guys. But Jaws of the Lion is basically a condensed version of Gloomhaven, where players are going to be doing dungeon crawl and basically teaching you the core concepts of Gloomhaven in an easier to, I would say, more palatable experience. And that's why I'm putting this one as a first purchase before Gloomhaven. I think you can pick this one up between $30 and $60 depending on the sales, and it's a good way to see if Gloomhaven's system is for you, because Gloomhaven ranges between 100 and 140. It might be better to try this first, see if the system works, see if you enjoy the unlock system, and then go on to the bigger brother. But that's Gloomhaven Jaws of the Lion. Okay, what did I put down for this next section? I've got Engine Builder Hand Management. So Engine Builder Hand Management I put down was Wingspan. Wingspan is obviously a game that many people know about. It's been talked about quite a bit. I've been a big fan of Wingspan since I picked it up. Very good engine building game, really good art. The theme always confuses people when people ask, like, what are some of your favorite games, and I talk about Wingspan, they're like, a game about birds? Like, how does that work? But the idea of this game, in terms of how the birds have synergy with one another, where you're trying to come up with the best overall plan, and building your engine while also managing your resources is an extremely fun and rewarding game. I will say that this one has seen less play, I would say in 2021, because we really played the heck out of it in 2020. But it's still a game I would never not want to play. If someone in my group said, hey, let's pull out Wingspan, I would always be willing to play this game. Been a mainstay and solid part of my collection since at least I think 2019 is when we bought this game. Definitely super enjoy it. I only have the European expansion for this game. I don't necessarily think the expansions are required, but I did like the added variety and additional player powers of the European expansion, and I have not played the newest expansion either. So that's Wingspan. Definitely one of my top rated games. Now, we have another game that's in a very similar vein with hand management. This one's a tableau builder, though. So instead of being a engine builder, it kind of has an engine building system with it, because most tableau builders have some sort of engine you're building. And that's Everdell. And Everdell was the game that kind of uprooted Wingspan in terms of that medium family-friendly experience that we were having during 2020. Once we picked up Everdell, I've really come to find that this one is an extremely enjoyable experience. It definitely brings back the childhood memories of loving Redwall and liking the idea of these little forest creatures building and creating their own little towns within their tree. And that is part of the joy for me of playing Everdell. They have recently just announced the the collector's complete collection for Everdell, so you could potentially find that in retail, but just buying the base game as a starting point is highly recommended. I do have all of the current expansions for this one, but a lot of the times we'll only include one expansion and just enjoy the base game. The base game has a lot of variety to it, and people seem to enjoy the tableau building. So that is Everdell. Okay, so the next one, let's move these over. This one might come off as a little interesting in my list. I have seen this in retail, and that's why I put this here. It's not a Kickstarter exclusive. I'm not sure in terms of the availability of the retail, but in terms of a thematic game, is this right side up? Okay. Is Nemesis. Nemesis, as soon as we pick this up, has been an incredible experience for the player group. The thematic feeling, and when I say thematic, I want to say maybe immersion is a good way to describe it, where I just feel like I am part of the game and being drawn into the situations that we're in. I talk a lot about experiences and stories, and Nemesis has been one that has generated fun and funny stories where we talk about situations or shutting a door on someone so that they get attacked by the alien and we get to run away. Things like that. You don't get that kind of experiences in too many games. And so whenever I do notice myself getting these memories, it kind of solidifies itself as a top game. War of the Ring was another experience. Rebellion was another experience of that, where you just get these fun feelings where you're being totally immersed in the game. But Nemesis is one that I definitely feel like is an extremely good game. I think this is a good mainstay for a collection if you're looking for that higher tier of companies that's more of modern board gaming. I think Nemesis is a great addition. So we have two left. Now, as a caveat, this one is the big box, and I only have doing this because I don't have the small box anymore, but Terraforming Mars, and there's no way I'm gonna be able to hold this up. Terraforming Mars. I could hold it up, but I'm definitely not gonna sit here and do that for 5 minutes or whatever. Terraforming Mars, what did I write down for Terraforming Mars? Just hand management and maybe tableau building. What did I write down? I'm kind of curious. Literally doesn't matter for you guys. I put tableau hand management as well. So that goes in the same vein as Everdell. But Terraforming Mars, I really enjoyed so far. At every player count that I've played it at, 2 to 4 players has been an incredible experience. I definitely feel like the drafting aspect to Terraforming Mars, which is a non-standard way of playing, but I think it should be the standard way. Adds a lot of tension to the gameplay as you're unsure of what cards you want to pass and which ones you want to take, and then having the decision of which ones you're actually going to spend your money on as you're building your game. There's so many times when I'm playing Terraforming Mars that the kind of idea of your eyes are hungrier than your stomach kind of idea, where you see these cards, you're like, oh, these are going to be great cards, and then you overspend for them and it ends up hurting you because you're not actually able to play them all. Terraforming Mars has been one of those games that continually keeps hitting and hitting. Now, I will say this, in terms of the expansions, I have all of the expansions for Terraforming Mars. The one that only really sees continual play for us is the Prelude expansion, which just gives a little bit more of starting resources per the faction that you're doing. Other than that, we don't really play with the colonies or the Venus expansion. We have yet to break out the Turmoil expansion. And most of the time it's because people in the player group just don't want to learn another variant of the game. They're totally fine with the base game. So I think that Terraforming Mars has been a great mainstay since we've owned it in our collection. It was one of the original games we purchased, and continually keeps being a hit. So the final game, and we're gonna kind of hold it up for a second. The final game, I have it listed as solo/adventure game. So when I'm looking for a solo experience, this is the game that I think so far has delivered the best experience for me. And I do have all the expansions for this game, which increases more replayability. But I definitely don't think you have to start off with all the expansions. You can pick this up, the base game, and experience the 4 base characters in the game. And that is Too Many Bones. Too Many Bones, and I actually have the Trove chest now, which is back here. You can't see that right now. But Too Many Bones has been a wonderful experience for an adventure game. And I call it an adventure game because it's not a dungeon crawl. It's not like a game that you are going to be taking your character through different types of dungeons and getting loot and killing minions. It's more of a puzzle where you are also going on a random adventure, and there are scenarios that you'll experience that won't even have combat for you to engage in. It'll talk about the different types of situations you might find yourself in, and then you'll have a decision-making path to make a choice to determine what you do. Some may end up in combat, which you then go to the battle mat. Some might be just a dialogue with some trading options, or you're trader the trader. Very interesting game. I like the way it doesn't take itself too seriously, and there's a lot of joking stuff that the developers have put into the game. Incredible components, but I don't want to focus on the components because I feel like that draws away from the actual gameplay. The game is hard in the sense that it's asymmetrical. Every single character requires its own player aid sheet to understand all of different types of dice, and this is a dice building game where you're going to be building your character with different types of dice, where you're going to select different types of abilities and skills that you're going to level up, and then you will roll your dice to see the results. In terms of rolling dice, I normally don't like games that require me to roll dice because I feel like there's so much chance involved in that, but this game really doesn't give you that feeling. In fact, the battles will ramp up pretty quickly in terms of difficult level, and you never feel like you're being cheated out of a game. Everything feels achievable, and it really gives you that rewarding satisfaction for completing the game. So Too Many Bones is the final game that I'm having on the list as my solo experience. So those are the 10 games plus some bonus lists that I would start over if I was buying my collection new right now. These are the games that I would definitely want in my collection going forward. I hope this list helped you guys in terms of giving you an idea of where my tastes align That might help you guys understand kind of who I am as a gamer in terms of what I like to play. Let me know in the comment section down below what your games would be if you had to start over. I'd like to kind of get your guys' lists. Try to follow the same type of layout I did, where you have, you know, your gateway games, your adventure games, your solo games, your dungeon crawl games. Try to have as many of individual types of games on there, because it makes it kind of a fun challenge. That is it. So this is Brian with Game Brigade. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Please leave me a like if you did, and leave a comment down below. And if you really want to help me out, join the community by clicking the subscribe button. I will talk to you all very soon.